In the dawn's like boots on the ground, the leaves crunch beneath as we head down. There's something about the woods and for the peace that quietly heed the call. Won't you join me on this trail, dear, where the deer stand tall and the air so clear? Well, the rifle slung with storytellers here, with some tales of hunts from yesteryear. The golden hues on the trees align with the spirit of the hunt. It's a sacred time. Won't you join me on this trail, dear, where the deer stand tall and the air so clear?
You're listening to my favorite podcast, the
Big Buck Registry.
Big Buck Registries.
Big Buck Registries.
Big Buck Registries.
The Big Buck Registries Deer Hunt Podcast.
Welcome to the October 2024 edition of the Big Buck Registries Deer News you might have missed over the last month. In this edition, first Jim takes us to Michigan to explore a Michigan bill that seeks to reverse deer hunting restrictions for youth, veterans, and disabled hunters. Then Dusty covers a story in Wisconsin about the Wisconsin DNR initiating a review of deer management units ahead of the 2025 season. I'll explore the New York DEC transition to electronic deer tags for the 2024 to 2025 hunting season. Dusty covers the latest on CWD, and I'll discuss deer overpopulation, both stories from Virginia. Finally, Jim wraps up with a CWD story out of Texas. We've got lots to cover, so let's get started.
Now here's Jim Keller with the Deer News.
A new bill in Michigan proposes to reverse recent restrictions placed on deer hunting for youth, veterans, and hunters with disabilities. The Michigan Natural Resources Commission had recently approved new regulations making the September Liberty Hunt and October Independence Hunt special hunts designated for these groups antlerless only starting in 2025. This decision aimed to reduce the overpopulation of white-tailed deer in the Lower Peninsula, an issue that has caused environmental strain, crop damage, and an increase in vehicle collisions. Proponents of the new bill believe that these restrictions unfairly limit the hunting experiences of underrepresented groups, particularly young hunters and disabled veterans. Supporters of the bill argue that hunting for antlered deer, especially bucks, holds greater significance for many hunters, as it offers a sense of accomplishment and provides more engagement with the tradition of hunting. Youth and disabled hunters, who already face limited hunting opportunities, should not be restricted further by these regulations. Additionally, some critics of the antlerless-only rule believe that reducing the number of hunters allowed to harvest bucks may discourage participation in hunting, which is already declining in Michigan. On the other side of the debate, wildlife management experts stress the importance of focusing on antlerless deer to control the population effectively. They argue that by increasing the harvest of does, the population growth can be curbed more efficiently, helping to address the ecological challenges posed by too many deer in the region. These challenges include habitat destruction and the spread of diseases like chronic wasting disease, CWD, which poses long-term risks to the deer population.
The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, DNR, is currently reviewing the boundaries of its deer management units, DMUs, with potential modifications expected before the 2025 hunting season. This review is particularly focused on DMUs located in the northern and central forest zones, as well as the metropolitan subunits and boundary lines between forest and farmland zones. The DMUs are crucial for establishing regulations related to antlerless deer hunting, which have historically been a point of contention among hunters and wildlife managers. Unlike antlered deer regulations, which are generally less controversial, the allocation of antlerless tags can lead to significant disagreements. The DNR's Deer Program Specialist, Jeff Pritzel, highlighted that this review is part of a regular process that aims to better manage deer populations in response to changing ecological conditions and hunter feedback. During a recent meeting of the DNR's Deer Advisory Committee, Pritzel discussed the proposed changes and engaged with committee members, which include representatives from various conservation organizations and the U.S. Forest Service. The DNR aims to balance the interests of hunters with ecological sustainability, utilizing data-driven approaches to guide the review process. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC, is set to revolutionize the hunting experience for the 2024 to 2025 season with the introduction of electronic deer tags. This modernization initiative is designed to streamline the licensing and tagging process, providing greater convenience for hunters across the state while emphasizing sustainability. Starting this hunting season, all licenses and deer management permits will be available for electronic purchase, allowing hunters to print their tags at home. This shift marks the first time New York will move away from the use of plastic tags, opting instead for plain paper versions that can easily be printed after purchase. The DEC encourages the use of its HuntFish NY mobile app, which will allow hunters to display their licenses electronically while in the field. Interim DC Commissioner Sean Mahar expressed enthusiasm for the new system, stating, "DEC continues to modernize the sporting license system and improve the license buying experience for the public. The ability for people to receive their licenses electronically and print tags at home will make it quicker and easier to get outdoors and connect with nature through hunting and fishing." With this transition, hunters can purchase their licenses and permits online via phone or in person, gaining immediate access to print licenses and tags. Additionally, the DEC has eliminated the requirement for hunters to wear back tags, although carrying proof of licensure will still be mandatory. For the first time, hunters will not need to tag their deer immediately after harvest. They can drag the animal to their vehicle before affixing the tag, allowing for greater flexibility in handling harvested game. To ensure that the tags remain intact during transport, the DEC recommends placing them in a waterproof bag. While the DEC is optimistic about the benefits of the new electronic system, concerns about potential misuse remain. The department is committed to upholding compliance and ethical hunting practices, and officials plan to collaborate with law enforcement agencies to monitor and enforce regulations.
Chronic wasting disease, CWD, a fatal neurological disease that primarily affects deer, elk, and moose, has become a significant issue in Virginia. The Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources, DWR, has been actively tracking the spread of this disease since it was first detected in the state in 2009. As of the 2023 to 2024 season, CWD has been confirmed in 15 counties across northern and southwest Virginia. Recent surveillance has shown the disease spreading southeast, with new cases detected in Tazewell County, pushing the boundaries of the state's disease management areas. CWD is caused by infectious proteins called prions, which are transmitted between deer through saliva, feces, urine, and even soil contaminated by prions. There is no known cure, and the disease eventually leads to death in affected animals. Although CWD has not been shown to affect humans or domestic animals, its impact on deer populations remains a serious concern. In the 2022 to 2023 hunting season, 47 cases were detected in Virginia, with the bulk of these cases concentrated in Frederick County, which has seen the most infections since 2009. In response, DWR has implemented various measures, including expanded surveillance, stricter regulations on carcass disposal, and restrictions on feeding and baiting deer to prevent the clustering that accelerates the spread of CWD. The bans on baiting and feeding are crucial in slowing the spread of CWD, said Alexandra Lombard, the state's wildlife health coordinator. She noted that clustering deer increases contact between healthy and infected animals, making it easier for the disease to propagate. As part of the state's ongoing efforts, Franklin, Roanoke, and Wythe counties have been added to DMA-3 for the 2024 to 2025 season. In addition, a new DMA, DMA-4, has been established to include Bland, Smith, and Tazewell counties. Hunters are urged to continue cooperating with DWR's efforts by avoiding the use of deer lures that contain natural urine, getting their harvests tested, and following restrictions on transporting deer parts from DMAs.
In southwest Virginia, deer overpopulation is rapidly becoming a pressing issue, leading to significant concerns among residents and wildlife management officials. Regions such as Accomack County and Highland County are experiencing challenges associated with rising deer populations, which pose risks to local ecosystems and human safety. According to the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources, DWR, deer populations have stabilized, but their impact on biodiversity and habitat health is increasingly evident. Local authorities are exploring various management strategies to address these issues effectively. In Accomack County, community engagement is a priority, with stakeholders, including residents, wildlife experts, and government officials, collaborating to develop sustainable solutions. Accomack County's DWR representative emphasized, "We need to focus on creating habitat modifications that deter deer from residential areas, while also informing residents about coexistence strategies. Proposed measures include increasing public awareness campaigns, implementing non-lethal control measures, and establishing fencing in vulnerable areas to protect gardens and crops. Highland County faces a particularly complex situation, as studies suggest that the rising number of natural predators, such as coyotes and bears, has not effectively curtailed deer populations as anticipated. DWR wildlife biologist Tyler Evans remarked, "The dynamics of predator-prey relationships are more complicated than we thought. We may need to reassess our management strategies to address this imbalance. As hunting remains a primary tool for managing deer numbers, the community continues to adapt its strategies based on data collected during hunting seasons, which serve as critical indicators of population trends. Despite the challenges, innovative approaches to wildlife management are emerging as potential models for other regions facing similar dilemmas. The DWR's commitment to balancing ecological health with public safety is evident in its efforts to involve local communities in decision-making. By engaging residents and providing them with information, we can create a more sustainable approach to managing our deer populations," said DWR Representative Sarah James. As Virginia navigates these challenges, the focus remains on fostering sustainable wildlife management practices that address the complexities of deer overpopulation while ensuring ecological integrity.
As chronic wasting disease, CWD, continues to pose a significant threat to Texas's deer population, breeders and wildlife officials are grappling with the challenges of managing this fatal neurological disease. CWD has been a growing concern since its first detection in Texas in 2012, with 87% of confirmed cases occurring in deer breeding facilities. John True, a deer breeder from Hunt County, described the situation as the most trying time for his industry, stating, "It's suffocating." True operates a facility that specializes in producing deer with impressive antler racks, which are highly sought after by hunters. However, the potential spread of CWD is threatening not only his business but the entire breeding community. CWD, first identified in Colorado in 1967, has spread to 35 states, leading to stringent regulations aimed at controlling its impact. In Texas, if a deer tests positive for CWD, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, TPWD, establishes a surveillance zone around the affected breeding facility. Currently, there are 9 containment zones and 23 surveillance zones across the state. Experts believe that the disease primarily spreads when infected deer are sold or when hunters transport contaminated carcasses. This can lead to environmental contamination, as CWD prions can persist in soil and water. As part of their management strategy, the TPWD mandates that all deer that die on breeding facilities must be tested for CWD, and positive cases trigger investigations to identify other potentially exposed animals. However, these regulations have led to a rift between breeders and wildlife officials. Many breeders argue that stringent regulations not only threaten their livelihoods, but also diminish property values in affected areas. Kevin Davis, executive director of the Texas Deer Association, expressed concerns during a recent Parks and Wildlife meeting, stating, "It's probably time for us to go ahead and stop adopting new zones and just change the regulation altogether." While the deer breeding community expresses distrust towards the TPWD's management approach, conservationists stress the importance of these regulations for protecting Texas's wildlife. Mary Pearl Muth, president of the Texas chapter of the Wildlife Society, highlighted that CWD is not only a problem for deer breeders, it is a problem for all Texans, noting the potential ecological impacts of a declining deer population. That concludes this month's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. If you have any ideas for future topics or have questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com.
I'm Dusty Phillips.
I'm Jim Keller.
And I'm J. Scott Ammon. And thank you for tuning in to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunt podcast. We can be found on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you would like to support us and our cause, please consider buying some merchandise off of our merch page by visiting www.bigbuckmerch.com. Catch you next time, and good luck in the deer woods.
As we move on with hearts so strong, echoes of nature sing our song. In every rustle, a story's told of days gone by and hunts of old. Listening post to deer hunt by the big buck registry, sharing tips and tales, it's where we ought to be.